I'd like to begin by apologizing sincerely for the offending comments that I've made. It's never appropriate to make oneself seem more important or smarter by demeaning others.
How much were you paid, you and your institution, by the federal taxpayer and by the state taxpayer?
I have disclosed for the committee, as I understand from my counsel, I'm required payment.
I'm not asking what you disclosed. I'm asking you a question. Give me a dollar amount. How much were you paid?
As I said, the committee can take that up with my counsel.
What did you mean by too stupid to understand the difference?
Congressman, I didn't mean anything by it.
Well, you said it. You had to admit it.
I was once again being glib and trying to make myself seem smarter.
So you're a professor at MIT and you're worried about not looking smart enough?
Yes.
Jonathan Gruber up on Capitol Hill today called it inexcusable arrogance. All those videos you've seen. We're back with our panel. Mara?
Well, it was inexcusable arrogance, and he kind of made himself out to be a poor schlub today. I've interviewed him many times, full disclosure. He's a very smart go-to guy on the mechanics of healthcare. He developed this great economic metric model that was used for the Massachusetts healthcare plan and Obamacare. But he said he just is the gift that keeps on giving to opponents of Obamacare. Not only did he insult people and suggested that the law was passed by subterfuge, although I think that almost anything he talked about was actually debated in public. But I think the most damaging thing he said, which could be the undoing of Obamacare, is when he said that the law was meant to only give subsidies to state-formed exchanges, not people who get their health care on the federal exchange.
Which is the case that's now heading to the Supreme Court.
And this is going to be Exhibit A.
But he tried to walk that back, George, numerous times today, saying he always believed that everybody would have it.
Well, it's an interesting question whether and how many Supreme Court justices pay attention to legislative history and whether this would count as the legislative history, and what Baucus said in the Scalia and some of these others say we don't care about legislative history. We shall see. But in the long run, the avalanche of insults that the Affordable Care Act has piled on people, Gruber's pretty small pebble. I mean, if you like your health care plan, you can keep it. Not true. It's going to save the average American family $2,500. Not true. He comes along, and what's the danger? That he's going to make the Affordable Care Act more unpopular? The American people made their mind up about this about the time it was passed, and they haven't budged.
It is pretty amazing how he has received the Heisman Award from many Democrats.
Everybody.
You know, stiff arm.
Yeah, right. Elijah Cummings was beating him up in the beginning. Look, I think the most interesting and potentially significant part of the testimony today was what Gruber actually didn't say. He didn't offer a serious explanation of what Mara raised, that his comments before that states don't get the subsidies if they don't set up the exchanges. People were looking for him to offer some plausible explanation as to why he had said that, to walk it back in a way that could be persuasive to the court. I mean, we like to think that the court isn't paying attention to these things, that they don't take political considerations into account when they're making their decisions, but I think plainly we've seen that that's not the case. And what Gruber failed to do today was to repudiate those comments or put them in context that would have taken away political space for the court to do the right thing.
The other person there was the CMS administrator, Marilyn Tavenner, who requested that she not sit next to Gruber for this hearing. Which was denied. She had previously testified 7.3 million people had signed up for Obamacare federal and state exchanges. That was 400,000 higher than it actually was, because she said she double counted dental policies.
She said it was a mistake. It was a mistake. So it turns out not as many people signed up as they said. I mean, I just don't think that they can afford too many more of these unforced errors. I mean, there's just one after another.
And that's what Elijah Cummings said, the ranking Democrat today.
Yeah, I think that in the scheme of things, to make an error like that, to count people who signed up for dental as people who signed up for medical, and now they've explained it. In the scheme of things, it's not terrible, but coming on top of this incredible list of mistakes, it didn't help.
But the problem is there have been dozens of mistakes, and they have all pointed in one direction.
I mean,
so if you believe that they're just mistakes, that the president didn't really know that people were going to be kicked off their insurance, every one after another, all point in favor of the rhetorical case that the administration is making and against.
They didn't undercount.
Never,
the numbers.
not once.
Last word, George.
Well, the big casino here is the Supreme Court decision, which if the Supreme Court simply rules, and it's statutory construction, it's not a constitutional issue. If it says that statute means what it says, suddenly millions of Americans are going to have radically higher premiums to pay. Before that happens, they can repeal the medical devices tax, and once you begin to pull the thread on this complicated system, the whole thing can unravel. And once they get the sheer enjoyment of taking bites out of this measure, they won't stop there. The individual mandate, the employer mandate, it's going to be a big spring.